Hop. Hello everyone. Hop, we will start just right now. Tac. Good. Hello everyone. So I'm Arthur Magne, CPO and co-founder at Promyze. At Promyze, we work on knowledge sharing for development teams and especially with technical leaders to help them to share and spread best coding practices across their team and across different teams within the organization. So first of all, I will talk a bit about the job of a technical leader. There is a lot of definition of what is technical leaders and what is the job to be done for these people. But globally, a technical leader need to do a lot of things: code reviews, mentoring, push a technical vision across his team and the organization, and define code quality and standard, or help his team to create code quality and standard. So he or she doesn't have to push code quality and standard directly, but the idea is for him or for her to let the team create their own coding standard, what we call the development standard within the team. And maybe those standards can be shared with a different team, and that could be great to avoid knowledge silos across different teams. So the issue that we see today with this role and this job is that it's really hard for technical leaders to spread efficiently this knowledge across the whole team, because often it's a discussion between two people only. Maybe when you are doing a code review and you write some comments directly within this code review, those comments will go only to one people, to one developer. And it's really important for the whole team to get this knowledge, to get this feedback, because otherwise, next week, maybe someone else will do the same mistake or will miss coding standards that we define with only two people. So the real issue is that capitalization today is really broken. And with Promyze, we try to help the technical leaders and help the team to capitalize on their own knowledge, their own coding standards. And the idea is to push those coding standards directly within their IDE and during code reviews to really use those living standards across the organization. And now we use AI to help those technical leaders to define the standards and to share those best coding practices across the team. So I will present you today how it works and what are the capabilities of the AI to help the technical leaders with Promyze. So if we can discuss a bit about this big picture of how a development team work today, it's really often the same thing. We have some individual contributors, some developers working alone or with another one doing pair programming. There is a lot of tacit discussion across Slack, across Microsoft Teams, and directly at all. But the idea is that everyone is alone with his own knowledge, and there is really a few best coding practices that have been capitalized in something like a wiki, like Confluence or Notion. Maybe you can start to explicit some living standards, some coding standard directly, but we often see only a few standards capitalized there, and often they are already out to date, and only a few developers go on those wiki, because there is a lot of context switching for us as developer. We go out from our IDE and we go to the wiki, we come back to the IDE. So it's really something that we don't want for the developer experience, because it will break the flow of the team, and we will be slower, and we will have to find ourselves a lot of best coding practices. So it's really complicated. The idea with Promyze is to centralize all of this knowledge with this Promyze solution, and this knowledge can be shared directly from the IDE and can be get from the IDE too, and during code review too. So the technical leaders or the developer doing the code review can identify directly some discussion topics or some best coding practices from GitHub, from GitLab, Bitbucket, or Azure DevOps, and can share those best coding practices to the whole team at once. The idea is to discuss with the whole team during what we call a practice review, once every week or once every 2 weeks, with the whole team or a whole community of practice. And the idea is to validate those best coding practices pushed by developers or technical leaders. But more often, a lot of best coding practices has to be created by the technical leaders or the senior developers, because they are the one who knows the project very, very well and can really enforce and push some ideas and some practice directly to the whole team. And to present you how it works. So this is Promyze. This is a web application, and the idea is for the whole team to together once every 2 weeks to make those practice review with Promyze. So it's really a support for practice review, to share those practice, to validate them, to launch a battle if not all the team agrees with this practice. And what is new with this latest version of Promyze is that we created a new role for technical leaders. This is something some role we call drivers. So here I'm a driver for my team. This role can be changed directly from the administration part. So here I can say, okay, I'm a driver for my team. So I'm technical leader or I'm a senior developer, and I will share a lot of knowledge with my team. So that's it. This is the role of driver. And I can handle and manage practice review with my team. I can animate those practice review with my team. Once I've configured up myself as a driver, I can have access to a set of new features within Promyze. So the first one, if I go to the administration, we can now directly connect Promyze to our Git repositories. So directly from GitLab, GitHub, Bitbucket, or Azure DevOps, I have just to add an authentication token, select the repositories I want to link to Promyze directly from GitLab. In my case, I only have one repository linked. And in this case, as a driver, I can prepare the next practice review directly with some files suggested by Promyze automatically. Because today we can create or directly best coding practices or topic from a right click within my IDE. So there I can identify a practice or a discussion topic. I can do this directly from GitLab or GitHub. Once each time I had a comment, for example, up right there, I'm adding a comment to someone, and I can create a best coding practices from this comment. But now we also can prepare this practice review directly from Promyze. The idea is to help technical leaders if they don't have if they don't viewed a lot of code during the last week because I don't know they didn't do a lot of practice or code review, and they didn't went a lot in their IDE. The idea is to have really a short list of changes occurred within the last days. So there, it's the modification coming from the last 2 weeks in my project. So in GitLab, I can see there that in my team there is 3 contributors, and I can see there the biggest contribution and the most important ones. So in Promyze, we select the files with a lot of changes, with a lot of large contribution, and some files touched by different developers. So it's really some hot files, some important files that have been changed. And in this case, I can see as a technical leader, if I see something interesting within this file and within those changes, maybe a bad practice, maybe a good practice, maybe just a discussion topic that I want to share with my team, or a question about the code, I can just select the lines that I want to highlight. Like in this case, this LM match with MongoDB. And in this case, I can create a new practice, for example, use LM match in Mongo aggregation to improve performance. And if I had this practice as a positive example, I will be able to discuss about it with my whole team at the end of the week during this practice review, and to explain to the team why it is important sometimes to use those MongoDB aggregation instead of directly function in TypeScript in the domain part of my application. So it's really about a discussion on why it's better to do it this way, or why it's bad to do it this way. So this is something new to help the technical leaders to identify some interesting discussion topic and to fill the next practice review. But we can go further. We can go a bit deeper. We can use now AI to automatically identify those practices for us. So in the administration, I'm a driver. I can enable this AI of Promyze. I can select what kind of AI I want to use. By default, it's OpenAI, but I can use my own Azure instance of OpenAI directly in my project. Then I can tell what is the frequency that I want for those base coding practices to be automatically generated. So I can see there, I can go to a daily frequency. I can say every day I want a few good practice, a few bad practice, and a few questions automatically generated on the latest changes. And what does it look like in this homepage, and also in Slack or Teams? I will get a notification when those base coding practices will be created, will be generated. And for example, there, I have a lot of practice and questions that have been generated during the last days. And those practices look like this. There is a name, awaiting promise when returning in a try catch, some categories, a description with a link directly to a more feed documentation. And then I can see my example. In this case, the AI automatically detected that there is an await statement missing in this line 39, and we will never go to the catch of this try catch statement because there is no await statement, and either it's implicit, this await statement. It's really important if we have a try catch to explicit really this await right there. And we also see a correction of this rule with the await just there. So it's an example of practice automatically generated by the AI. And as a technical leader, as a driver within Promyze, I can add it to the next workshop to discuss and validate it with my team. Or I can also select to not keep it because I don't need to, I don't want to talk about this. So this is an example of a bad example for practice identify, but we also have a good example for practice like this one, clear login. The AI saw that here we use our custom logger and we try to have a specific format for this log. So this is something that I can share with my team to say, okay, this is the format and the pattern we need to use when we log some information, for example. We have a lot of different base coding practices about different topics that will be generated. And we also have a lot of questions that can be generated on my code. For example, this one is about environment variable, and the AI and Promyze asked me, could there be a more general function to determine if a functionality is enabled or disabled based on the environment variable in order to avoid redundancy? So the idea there is to use feature flipping directly instead of environment variable, like in this case. So this is something that could be improved for a project for maintainability and really to use a feature flipping system. So this example is good. I can add it to the workshop. And in this case, during the next workshop, we will discuss and view some practices generated by the AI, like this one with this little logo, clear and descriptive test description. And with my team, we can validate this or not to improve our list of best coding practices and to discuss about it with my world team. So this is the first thing the AI can do, automatically generate question and best coding practices. But also, the AI is able to automatically generate some description for the practice with no description. So like this one, always return an express response. We have a title, we have a code example. This is the base of the base coding practice is in Promyze, but we didn't have any description. So there, the AI will automatically create a description for me with a lot of different interesting things for this practice, really specified for this practice. An example, a link directly to the express guide like this one, and I can accept or decline this description. If I don't like it, I can also decline it directly. But if I accept it, I can also edit this description. So this is another thing the AI can do, automatically generate description. And the last thing is the regular expression pattern for automatic detection of the practice. So as you might know, in Promyze, you can specify for a practice a pattern with SameGrep directly. SameGrep is a more kind of advanced pattern to detect those practices, but also with regular expression. And in this case, the AI will be able to automatically generate this regular expression for us. It will explain also this regular expression and add an example, a code example, matching this regular expression to be sure that it's working. So in this case, I can say, okay, this is a good pattern. I will add it, and automatically it will be detected within my IDE or during code reviews, like this one right there in line 31. Avoid watching on scope directly, automatically identified by Promyze. So it's really something to help you configure those automatic detection for different practices. It doesn't work every time, but a lot of time it will work. It will try to create a regular expression, and maybe you can customize it if you want to be more specific. But it's a really good base for you to be able to identify those best coding practices. Another thing that is new in this latest version of Promyze is the multified example for practice about architecture, for example, like this one. Use clean architecture to make an HTTP call with gateway. And we now see that there is different examples that have been gathered together. And something new about those examples is this description. We now have, we can create a description for every different example. Like the first step to make an HTTP call there is to dispatch an event from a React component in adapter primary. Then the use case will take this event and will call the gateway. And then this is how the gateway looks like. So it's something that you can configure. You can based on different examples for practice. You can gather them. You can change the order. You can change the description. You can remove those examples. So it's really up to you to configure the description of this practice based on different code example directly right there. So it's really something interesting for architecture practices or with practices linked to different files or even in the same files but at different places within the same file. And the last thing I wanted to show you is the notification part. As you may know, you can use Slack, Team, Mattermost, or Discord with Webhook to send a notification once a practice is created, a question is created, or a battle is launched. But you can now use a scheduler to send what we call the practice of the day. So for example, in our case, we use it daily. You can also use it weekly or monthly. And we can say, okay, I want daily to send a Slack notification or Teams or even by mail or in a distribution list directly by mail. It's something also new that you can add. And if you don't select a practice, there will be a random practice that will be selected and sent every day. But as a driver, I can say, okay, I want this practice to be sent tomorrow. So I can select in advance the practice that I want to share with my team. And in this case, the next day, this practice in Slack, for example, will look like this. I will see this practice of the day, and I will see this practice with this description and a direct link to go to this practice within Promyze directly. So it's really something that could help the team to understand and to discover those best coding practices if some of those practices can't be automatically detected. For example, it's a good way to share them with the team because otherwise the team will not have access to this practice directly from the IDE with automatic detection. So it's really good to remind the team all of those best coding practices that we created together, because with maybe a few turnover or someone new joining the team, it's interesting to remind those best coding practices every day. So I think that's it about the new features in Promyze. There is a lot of new features coming in the next months, but for now, if you want to try it up, I will share the link directly. It's really easy for different teams to try Promyze for free directly on the subscribe page right there. So there, in a few minutes, you can create your own organization, invite more developers of your team, and then try Promyze directly. And try to create some best coding practices, to try to automatically detect them with a pattern, and use the AI for Promyze to automatically generate best coding practices directly from your source code. So it's really specific best coding practices on your context. So it's really something that could help the technical leaders to share the existing practice within their code or the new ones that will be created every week directly to the web team. So thank you everyone for your attention. Feel free to follow us on LinkedIn and go to our website to see the news directly on our blog. And then see you next week with a new webinar. Bye.